I'm going to follow that a little bit closely, but let's kind of keep our thoughts towards that and hope. Yeah, let's just hope that everyone's actually safe and that either it's nothing or that if it's not nothing, that it ends relatively quickly.
Sure.
Yeah, hopefully. It should if it's in Columbus. I'm originally from Baltimore, and we burn and loot everything there. So I'm sure.
Yeah.
We know how to do it. I'm just saying.
Okay, so who we have on the air, our very last sponsor coming on the air. By the way, we're taking a break, talking to musicians for a bit, and we're celebrating our Sponsor Appreciation Day. So, it's our last sponsor, who just signed in probably about, a month ago? Marjorie?
Yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
Marjorie, and she is the Magical Things in Culpeper, Virginia. Where are you from?
It's in Culpeper, Virginia.
That's a mouthful for shells.
Yes,
it is.
Culpeper, Virginia. See, we got sponsors we got sponsors here, we got sponsors in Virginia, and we got one in Ohio. See, we're not going to just local here. We're looking for everyone sponsoring. Just come on in.
Right, we'll and I travel international with my business, so you're everywhere with me.
Global, worldwide.
See, and that's the whole point. We're a global kind of music.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Marjorie, tell us about your business. What do you do, and how long you've been doing it?
For about the last 10 years, I've had an arts and crafts business that has also had some sustainable merchandise that's like fair trade. And what it is I carry about 75% of what I carry now is my art and design, and I hand make all the things myself, and it's all got a fantasy theme to it. And I named it Magical Things because initially when I started the company, it was my graphic designs on T-shirts and linens and things like that, things that were easy for me to reproduce and sell. And because of the name being Magical Things, other things started coming into it because I was always creative and a crafter and things like that. So I started making costuming pieces and doing Renaissance fairs and going to conventions. And the last 2 years, I've put formal gowns under my moniker of skills and trades that I've done. So I just sort of create a story and a theme, and I follow that for a few months, and I make things that a character could wear or use within that story, and also have items like mugs and keychains and things like that that would have art that represents some of that story. So sometimes it's about Valkyries, sometimes it's about fairies, anything mythical and mystical I'm willing to do, and then I do some custom work as well.
Cool.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah. I make candles and potions and lotions and things like that as well. But it's all got some fun juju to it and sparkly and it's not scary. But yeah.
Yes,
now, when Halloween rolls around, do you switch gears a little bit and go for a little bit of witchery?
I am a certified multi-faith minister, which with a heavy background in earth-based spirituality. So I actually have taught a lot of workshops and had some information online at times that I've offered for free, and done Reiki counseling and all kinds of energy work. So I don't mind going darker with things. I don't necessarily view just like anything dark as bad. Mm-hmm. I view it as like a very creative side view. Like with the fairies, there are the dark fae, but they have a guardianship about them. And Gothic types of themes obviously become more popular, depending on where you're going. It's amazing to me how long the Gothic style has stayed around and lasted. Even in like the area I'm in, DC, I'm 2 hours away from DC, and every week there's some kind of goth event for people to go to, a nightclubs kind of thing, and a strong music base to it as well.
They do. They still do relatively often over in parts of Europe. They do these big, what they call castle parties, put on by these sometimes gothic industrial, sometimes just more like goth metal, goth rock bands. And they have maybe 15, 20, 30 bands all with a similar kind of sounding theme. And they're always packed. There's like people dress up, people, they get into it. It's really kind of refreshing to see something like that rather than some of these more commercialized, music festival things that are more about...
Absolutely. They have a different vibe to them, too. Whenever niche-oriented, I feel like people are a little nicer to each other because they're so happy. Because if you're weirdos, in the mainstream, and then you condense all that energy together, people really get a good chance to interact and be themselves and celebrate what they are. And I find it to be a more relaxed environment as far as you don't have to worry about your whole jewelry table being stolen when people come in and being distracted or hustled or sometimes there's a lot of drunkenness and drugs. Some concerts and people are out of it. They're not really interested in shopping. They're just going to pass out in front of your booth and that'll be it. But I mean, I've done a couple of fairy festivals in England, and one of them was indoors and a little lower key, but this last one I did was outdoors. And it still had just a very sweet vibe to it, and it wasn't... it still had a lot of music happening. It had a rave going on all night long as far as like a little nightclub inside this yurt and stuff like that. But it was festive. It stayed festive. It didn't go bad.
It's more like rather than just going to a music festival and just letting loose, you're going with a bunch of like-minded people to kind of celebrate something much older than yourself almost in a new way.
Sure. Community. Community. I mean, you start, you really start making a community, which is good for me. And the music and the art go hand in hand in creating that aesthetic and allowing you to go into a different world for a while and really escape it. It's hard to do that if you're just wearing a pair of fairy wings sitting in a coffee shop. That's not going to. That's not going to quench that thirst.
Now, I'm going to get into... I always get into this in the show because it's kind of my job to steer the show in this direction. I'm going to get into some possible controversial territory.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Do you find
I'm a witch living in the Bible Belt. I think I can do this.
Well, see, that's why it's a good question. You probably already have an answer for me that just fits it perfectly. The being of the mindset that you are, and being where you are in different things, and having traveled abroad, do you find yourself often having to clear up misconceptions about not necessarily what it is that you do with your artistic stuff, but also about some of the philosophy in general?
You would think that I'd have to. I used to have a shop in town. I closed it down this year because I've wanted to just travel more and explore other avenues with the art, and it takes a lot to run a shop, and you stay there for a lot of hours. And I've had some confrontations in the town And occasionally I would have, and I go into deep pockets in Virginia where, the people they don't get, there's not a lot of places to go. You can drive for 100 miles and you're still not going to hit a city. So when something interesting like a Renaissance fair or something comes along, more than I've found it being confrontational, I've felt like it's like a magnetic gatherer of them, where they're shocked that someone has spelled, like I spell the name of my shop with a CK, and that's intentional because of a lot of my spirituality, and they see that, and the ones that did have an earth-based practice to them see that and get very attracted to it and excited, and feel like they just went home. They got acknowledgement for it, which is why I've done it for so many years. Not all these little festivals were well paying, but to meet people and to bring art to them was interesting, because they someone wants to purchase your art and then it represents them in a way. So I have had confrontations for sure. They've been crazy people.
It's not Westboro Baptist crazy level, is it?
Yeah, sure, yes. I mean, I've had some vandalism. I had a coexist flag hanging up outside my shop, and someone took a knife and cut it down.
It's ridiculous.
Yes, that was horrible.
I mean, I laugh, but it's not really funny. It's just ridiculous.
It's aggressive. It's so aggressive.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. And I've had people come in who they were mentally ill. I think the best description I can use, and that's something that sometimes religious extremes do attract people who are mentally ill, and that can really happen in any extreme religion. But I was on an art board last year on an art foundation, and what I found more was a silent resistance. It was the more passive was kind of worse than the outright discrimination, because at least I know what I'm dealing with someone who's got a point of view who differs with mine, and they're expressing it, even if it's really stressful and forceful. I know where I'm coming from, but if someone's character is such that they're not going to have an open discussion with me, and they're being passive, it's a lot harder to decipher when something's going discriminatory, and that's what happened this past year. Is I had an art group going in the town. It was a mix of younger people, and usually we have like elderly people joining up for art groups, and it winds up being a lot of still life and landscapes, which is, Virginia's beautiful that way, but there's an other points of view. And so it was artists that do digital art, or they do pinups and nudes and things like that, and I was lending space with my store to have them meet, and one of the directors from the art foundation that I was a board member of came and visited, and immediately wanted to move it to the Baptist church down the street, which is in and of itself not the most horrible thing, but we only had 4 people in the group, and it kept on becoming more and more obvious that anything that I would try to move in the direction of alternative art or anything current and useful and different would be discouraged. That it would be, it would be done in such a southern, sweet, way that it was also almost impossible to make anything happen, even